Welcome to our daily reflection for this Monday, July 7th. And today we have a beautiful message in the scriptures, especially in the first reading, talking about the story of Jacob, and then the Psalm 91, which was the traditional psalm for night prayer for the Jews. And they really belong together in a beautiful way, as we'll see. So the story picks up where Jacob, who has to, he's deceived his father Isaac, about being Esau, and he's got to flee from his brother Esau, who might kill him, and he has to leave. And as he's journeying, he comes to a place that he's going to rename Bethel, which means house of God, because as he goes to this place, there's a shrine and some stones. He lays his head down and sleeps there that night, and then he has a vision. And he sees a ladder with angels ascending and descending. And he sees that this is the gateway to heaven. And Bethel literally means house of God. And that's what he's going to name the place, the house of God. And God appears to him and gives him a message of encouragement, because at this point, Jacob is very discouraged. He's been exiled from his home, estranged from his father and his brother, and he's a wanted man, and now he doesn't know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go back and go to his mother Rebekah's people. And that's kind of, where he's at. So he's in a very vulnerable and a frightening place. And God gives him a great message. And he says, look, I'm the God of your forefather, your father Abraham, and of Isaac and Jacob. And he then makes a promise that you're going to have many descendants. Jacob's not even married yet, but he's saying, look, you're going to have many descendants. I'm going to bless you, and nations will find their blessing through you. And then he gives him a word here that's really consoling, and one that'll be picked up in the Psalm especially, and that is, know that I will be with you. This great promise of God. This is the promise God made to Moses. I will be with you, right? And this is the great promise throughout Scripture, is God's promise of his presence. He will not abandon us. Know that I am with you. That's the line I want us to take out and think about in our meditation, our prayer today. God's promise to Jacob is his promise to us, as the psalmist will internalize that very echo. And of course, Jacob wakes up and he says, truly the Lord was in this spot and I didn't even know it. And he calls it, this is an awesome place because God is present here, and he calls it Bethel, the house of God. And then he says, he makes a vow, if God remains with me. Now God promised to be with him, but he says, if he remains with me in my journeys, then I'll come back, and the God of Abraham and Isaac will be my God as well, and I will be faithful to that God. So he makes his vow that he will follow and be faithful with this blessing, with God's abiding presence. And this is the very theme of the psalm too, because Psalm 91 is about protection, placing one's trust in God, and dwelling in his shelter, the shade of the Almighty, making God your refuge, your fortress, because you trust in him, you put your trust in him. And then God's promise that because he clings to me in love, I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he acknowledges me. And then God's great promise that comes after that is, he should call upon me and I will answer him, and I will be with him in distress. God doesn't promise that he's going to spare us from distress, but he promises to be with us in our distress, in our sufferings, in our trials. And so that's something to be reminded of, because oftentimes when we suffer pain and trouble, we think God is absent. He's abandoned us. He's left us. And that is not true at all. God is with us, especially in the midst of our sufferings. And so for Jacob, feeling lonely and abandoned, God gives him a promise of presence and blessing. And that becomes a consolation to Jacob. It becomes a consolation to the psalmist in Psalm 91, that if we call upon God, he will answer, and he will be with us in our sufferings, in our distress. And so let's reflect on that great promise and call upon God in the midst of all of our suffering and problems. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.